The marketplace was alive with noise, colors, and endless movement. Merchants shouted about their goods, buyers bargained with sharp voices, and strange smells filled the air. But in the middle of all this life sat a girl who looked nothing like the others. She was small, her body thin and weak, her clothes torn and dusty. One of her legs shook whenever she tried to stand, and her arms bore the marks of old scars. Her eyes were soft and sad, like the eyes of someone who had been hurt. Too many times the crowd moved around her, but no one stopped. No one cared. To them, she was nothing. Just broken flesh left to rot among the living. The aliens around her whispered cruel things. She's useless. One said with a laugh, she should be thrown away. No one wants her. Another replied. The girl lowered her head, hiding her face under her messy hair. She had learned long ago that answering back only brought more pain. So she stayed silent, swallowing her tears. Her stomach growled from hunger, but she had no strength to beg any more, even if she did. No one would give her food. Why would they? Waste it on someone who could not work, who could not fight, who could not please. Her mind drifted to the accident that had broken her body years ago. She remembered fire, screams, and the feeling of being trapped under heavy stone. When she woke up, she was different, weaker, slower, and the others never let her forget it. From that day on, she was not a person in their eyes. She was a burden. Every step she took reminded her of her brokenness. Every look from strangers cut her deeper than any blade. Still, she tried to survive because some part of her refused to die. But hope was small and fading with each passing day. That morning, she tried to lift a sack of discarded cloth from the ground. Her hands shook and she dropped it, falling hard to her knees. The crowd laughed again, their voices sharp as knives. One merchant smirked. Look at her. Can't even carry rags. She's worse than useless. Her cheeks burned red. Her heart sank, and she wished the ground would open and swallow her whole. But then, something strange happened. The laughter stopped for a moment, and she felt eyes on her, not cruel eyes, but different. When she raised her head slowly, she saw him. He was not one of them. His skin was different, his face sharper, his build stronger. He wore clothes that looked rough and simple, but his presence was powerful. It was the first time she had ever seen a human. The other aliens turned to him, curious but mocking. What are you staring at? One of them asked, but the human said nothing. His gaze remained on the broken girl. She felt her heart race, confused and afraid. Why was he looking at her like that? Not with disgust, not with laughter, but with something else. Something she did not understand. The girl tried to hide again, pressing her face into her hands. But she could still feel his eyes on her, steady and unshaken. When she dropped the sack again, too weak to hold it, the human stepped forward. He bent down, his hands strong but gentle as he lifted the sack with ease. The crowd snickered. Look at him, helping trash. Humans must be fools. But the human ignored them, his attention never leaving her. He placed the sack beside her and spoke for the first time. His voice was calm, low, and firm. You don't have to do it alone, he said. Her lips trembled, her voice barely a whisper. Why? Why would you help me? I'm broken. The words tasted bitter, filled with the shame she carried for years. The human tilted his head slightly, studying her with quiet eyes. You're not broken, he answered softly. You're alive. The girl froze, the words echoing inside her like a sound she had never heard before. Alive? No one had ever said that to her. To everyone else, she was already dead inside. But this man, this human, saw something else, something she did not see in herself. The crowd grew restless, laughing louder, mocking both of them. Take her then, human, someone shouted. She's nothing but a burden, another added. But the human did not respond to them. He only looked at her, His eyes held no pity, only truth. The girl hugged her arms around her body, afraid to believe in him, afraid it was all a cruel trick. But in that moment, for the first time in years, she felt something spark inside her chest, a question she had never dared ask herself. Could someone truly see her as more than broken? As the sun dipped lower, shadows stretched across the market. The humans stood tall among them, silent but unshaken. The girl stayed on the ground, weak and trembling, but her heart beat with a strange new rhythm. The crowd moved on, losing interest, their laughter fading. Only the human remained, still watching her, and she realized this was not the end of her story, but the beginning, because when no one else wanted her broken body, a human had stepped forward, and in his eyes, she was not trash. She was something more. She did not yet know what, but deep inside, she wanted to find out. The next morning, the market was alive again with the same noise, the same shouting voices, and the same cruel laughter. The girl sat in her usual place near the corner, her arms wrapped tightly around her knees. Trying to make herself invisible, she wanted to believe yesterday had not been a dream, that the human's eyes had truly looked at her without hate. But dreams never lasted in her world, and kindness was something she had never trusted. Then she saw him again. The human walked into the market with steady steps, his presence quiet yet strong. The merchants stared at him, curious, whispering to one another, "Why has he returned? Why is he here again?" The girl's heart skipped. She lowered her head quickly, not wanting him to see her shame again, but it was too late. His eyes had already found her. He approached slowly, carrying nothing in his hands, his expression calm as if he had all the time in the world. The girl trembled. Her body wanted to run, but her weak legs betrayed her. When he stopped in front of her, she whispered, "Go away. They will laugh at you." His answer was simple, spoken like truth. Let them laugh. He crouched down, close enough for her to see the lines of his face, the sharpness of his jaw, the strange warmth in his eyes. In his hands, he held a small piece of food, bread wrapped in cloth. He placed it before her, not forcing it into her hands, only leaving it on the ground as an offering. Her stomach ached at the sight, hunger clawing deep inside her, but fear kept her frozen. "What do you want in return?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Nothing," he replied. "You need it more than I do." The words shocked her, because in her world, no one gave without taking. She shook her head. "If I eat it, they will beat me. They will say, I stole it." He looked toward the crowd, his gaze firm, his voice low yet strong. "Then they will face me," he said. Something in the way he spoke made her chest tighten, as if a shield had been placed around her. Still, she hesitated, because she had learned to doubt everything. Her hands hovered above the bread, but did not touch. The human did not move, did not press her. He only waited. The silence between them grew heavy. Yet, it was not cruel silence. It was something softer, almost safe. For the first time, silence did not hurt. It wrapped around her like a blanket. Her fingers finally brushed the bread, and tears filled her eyes as she pulled it close. She ate in small bites, her hands shaking, afraid someone would snatch it away. But no one came, because the human sat beside her, his shadow covering her like protection. The aliens passing by snickered. "Look at the human, feeding trash." Another laughed. Does he want her for pity? Or is he blind to what she is? The girl's face burned with shame. She wanted to vanish. But when she looked at him, he was not laughing. His eyes did not waver. His lips did not curl with mockery. Instead, he said, loud enough for only her to hear, "Let them talk. Their words mean nothing." She swallowed hard, wondering how words that sounded so simple could feel so powerful. When she finished eating, she tried to speak, but her voice cracked. "Why? Why do you do this? She whispered. You don't know me. You don't owe me. The human leaned back, his arms resting on his knees, his face thoughtful. You were struggling, he said. I could not walk away. Her chest tightened. Again, because it was the first time anyone had spoken as if her life had value. She wanted to believe him, but her scars whispered louder, telling her it was impossible. The human seemed to notice her doubt, because he added, quietly, I do not see broken pieces when I look at you. I see someone still fighting to live. Her breath caught. Tears stung her eyes. She turned away quickly, ashamed of her weakness. Still, the words stayed inside her, refusing to let go. For a moment, she let herself wonder, could he truly mean it? Could he truly see me? The market continued its chaos, but in the space between them, there was calm. The human rose to his feet and said, Tomorrow, I will return. Her head snapped up, her eyes wide. Why? She asked. Because no one should eat alone. He answered, and then he walked away. Her body shook. Her mind screamed that it was a lie, but her heart beat with a hope so dangerous it almost hurt. That night, she lay awake, staring at the broken roof above her. Every sound of the market faded from her ears, and all she could hear was his voice repeating in her mind. You're not broken, you're alive. And now another voice followed. I will return. The girl clutched her chest as if holding something precious inside. She did not know why this human cared. She did not know what he wanted, but for the first time in years, she prayed tomorrow would come quickly, because in his silent exchange, he had given her more than bread. He had given her the taste of hope. The market grew louder the next day. Yet for her, the noise no longer felt the same. Each sound was distant, as if her mind was waiting for only one thing. Every time footsteps approached, her heart jumped, hoping it was him, fearing it was not. And then, when she saw the human walking through the crowd again, her chest filled with both relief and confusion. Why was he still coming back? He carried no goods to sell, no bags to trade. Only the same calm steps and sharp eyes. The merchants looked at him with suspicion, but no one dared block his way. The girl sat in her corner, her thin body shaking with nerves when he stopped. In front of her, she lowered her gaze, unable to meet his eyes. Still, he crouched down, placing food before her again, just like yesterday. But this time, she did not touch it right away. Her lips parted. Her voice came out in a whisper. Why? Why do you keep coming? The human looked at her as if the question was strange. Because you need someone. Her heart twisted, because no one had ever said those words to her before. She wanted to laugh, to call him a liar. But his eyes did not allow it. They were too steady, too real. She took the bread with trembling hands, but before eating, she spoke. You don't understand, she said, her tone sharp from pain. I'm not worth this. The human tilted his head slightly, waiting for her to explain. Her lips quivered. But the words poured out like water breaking a dam. My body was ruined when I was a child, she whispered. There was fire, stone, screams. Her fingers dug into the cloth around the bread. They pulled me out, but I was no longer whole. I was slower, weaker, broken. Her eyes filled with tears, but she did not stop. My people said I was a burden. They left me behind. Oh, they laughed whenever I tried to work, whenever I tried to live. Her voice cracked. I am not a live human. I am just waiting to die. Her shoulders shook, her chest heaved. The truth burned in every word. She expected him to turn away, to finally see the worthlessness they all saw. But he did not. The human reached out, his hand brushing gently against hers, steady and strong. You are alive, he said firmly. And that is enough. She shook her head, pulling her hand back. No, you don't know what it feels like. To be hated, to be nothing. But his voice did not waver. I do know what it feels like to be alone, he said. And I know the strength it takes to keep breathing when the world wishes you gone. Her breath caught, because his words sounded as if they came from his own pain. Could it be true? Could he also know what it was like to be broken inside? The silence between them grew heavy, but it was not cruel. She wiped her tears with shaky fingers, whispering, "Why are you doing this? Why not walk away like everyone else?" The human's eyes softened, though his face stayed firm. "Because I see you," he said. "Not your scars, not your weakness, you." Her throat tightened, her heart pounded against her ribs. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not once in all the years of her suffering. For a long time she could not speak. Finally she whispered, "But I have nothing to give back." The human leaned closer, his voice low but steady. "Then give me nothing, just live." Her chest trembled with emotions she could not name, hope, fear, longing, all twisting together until she could hardly breathe. The crowd around them muttered with disgust. The human is wasting his time. She is broken, she is trash. The girl flinched at their words, but the human ignored them completely. Instead, he placed the food back in her hands, whispering, "Eat, stay strong. Tomorrow will be harder if you don't." And she realized something in his tone. He was not only feeding her stomach, he was feeding her spirit, something no one else had ever tried to do. That night, she lay awake again, her mind racing. The roof above her leaked. The floor beneath her was cold, but she felt warmth inside her chest. She remembered every cruel word ever spoken to her, every scar that marked her skin, yet tonight another voice was louder. "You are alive. You are enough. You are seen." Her body might have been broken, but for the first time in years, her heart felt alive. She curled up on the ground, clutching the last piece of bread he had given her, and whispered into the darkness, "Why do you care? Why me?" The silence gave no answer, but deep inside, she felt one thing for certain. Tomorrow, he would come again, and with him, the questions that terrified her most. Was this kindness real, or would it vanish like every other fragile hope in her life? And if it was real, could she ever dare to trust it? The fourth day came, and the market was darker than usual. Clouds hung heavy above the alien city. The air smelled of smoke and metal. And voices were sharper, louder, filled with anger. The girl sat in her corner again, waiting, her heart both hopeful and afraid each time she thought of the human's words. Her chest tightened with warmth, yet her mind whispered cruel doubts. Could he really mean it? Or would he grow tired of her like everyone else? The human appeared once more, steady as always, carrying food and water in his hands. The crowd noticed, their whispers growing sharper, louder, crueler. Again he feeds the broken one. A merchant sneered. Humans must be fools, caring for useless flesh. Another mocked. The girl lowered her head, shame burning her cheeks. But the human ignored them as if they were dust. He crouched beside her, placing the food gently in her hands. "Eat," he said softly. "Your strength matters." But before she could taste a bite, the laughter of a cruel voice rose above the rest. It was the old merchant, a thick-bodied alien with scars across his face. He stepped forward, his eyes narrow and filled with greed. "Human." The merchant barked. "If you want that broken trash, then pay for her. She is worth something, after all." The girl froze, her blood turning cold. The merchant grinned wickedly, not as a worker, not as a wife, not even as a servant. No. But her body has parts metal, bone, tissue that can still be sold. The girl gasped, horror filling her chest. She remembered whispers of this fate, unwanted ones cut apart and sold piece by piece. Her hands shook so violently that the bread almost fell to the ground. The crowd laughed, some nodding in agreement. Yes, let the human buy her, or let her be sold for parts. Her heart pounded, her lungs tightened. She whispered, "Please, no," her voice breaking with terror, her body curled inward. Small and shaking, as if preparing to be taken, the human's expression hardened, his calm eyes turning fierce. He stood slowly, his tall frame casting a long shadow over the merchant. "Enough," he said firmly, his voice carrying across the market. The crowd fell silent. Surprised by the strength in his tone, the merchant chuckled darkly. "Enough. Do you think your words matter here, human? She is nothing. She is ours to discard." The human stepped closer, his eyes sharp as blades. "She is not yours," he said, "and she is not trash." The merchant scoffed. "Spitting on the ground, then prove it. Claim her, or leave her." The girl's breath caught, her eyes wide with fear. This was the cruel choice either. She belonged to someone, or she would be destroyed. Her voice trembled. "Please. Don't fight for me. You'll only get hurt." But the human did not. "Step back," he raised his voice for all to hear. "She belongs to me now, and no one will touch her." The market exploded with noise. Some laughed, some shouted, others gasped. The merchant snarled, "You would take her. A broken one. You shame your own kind." But the human's face was unshaken, his hand resting protectively near the girl. "If anyone dares lay a hand on her, they answer to me," he declared. The girl's heart throbbed wildly. She had never heard words like these. No one had ever defended her. No one had ever stood between her and cruelty. Tears blurred her eyes as she whispered, "Why? Why do you fight for me?" The human turned to her, his gaze softer now, his voice low. "Because you are worth fighting for." Her breath broke, her chest aching as the words sank deep. She had dreamed of being worth something all her life, but hearing it spoken aloud felt impossible. The merchant, red with anger, raised his hand as if to strike. But the human stepped forward, his body tense, his stance ready. The merchant froze. Seeing the fire in the human's eyes, the crowd fell silent again, waiting, watching, wondering if blood would be spilled. After a long moment, the merchant spat and turned away, muttering, "Fools waste themselves on fools." The crowd dispersed, their laughter fading, but whispers spread like smoke. The story of the human who claimed the broken girl was now known by all. When it was finally quiet, the girl sat trembling, her hands clutching the bread tightly. Her voice shook as she whispered, "You should not have done that. Now they will hate you." The human crouched beside her once more, his voice steady. "Let them hate. I don't care. What matters is you." She looked at him with wide, wet eyes, her lips trembling. "But why me?" He smiled faintly, the first real smile she had ever seen from him. "Because no one else would, and you deserve more than what they gave you." Her tears spilled freely, her shoulders shaking as sobs broke free from years of silence. For so long she had hidden her pain, her fear, her shame, but now the dam had cracked. The human placed a hand gently on her back, steady and warm. She cried into the quiet of the evening, and for the first time her tears did not fall alone. That night she lay awake again, clutching the bread he had given her, but more than food. He had given her something she had never known: protection. The cruel choice had been forced upon her, but instead of being destroyed, she was saved. And in her heart, she whispered to herself, "Maybe, just maybe, I can still belong." The market had grown restless since that day. Whispers of the human and the broken girl spread like fire. Some mocked, some laughed. Others simply shook their heads, calling it foolish. But the girl did not care about the crowd anymore, because for the first time in her life, someone had stood for her. Someone had called her worth fighting for. Her body was still weak, her scars still heavy, but her heart now carried something new, a fragile spark of hope. The human returned as he promised. Well, not just with food this time, but with a blanket folded. Under his arm, she stared at it in silence, her hands frozen, afraid to touch something so soft. He placed it around her shoulders gently, and the warmth sank into her thin frame. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Why do you do this?" "I don't deserve it." He looked at her with calm eyes and replied, "Because you are cold, because you need it." Nothing more. Tears filled her eyes, not from sadness, but from a strange ache she did not understand. It felt like her chest was opening, like something long locked away was breaking free. She held the blanket close, the fabric rough but precious. It was more than warmth, it was care, and that was something she had never known. The crowd watched, whispering again, but this time the human did not seem to notice at all. He sat beside her, eating his own share of food quietly. The silence between them was heavy, but not empty. It was safe, it was calm. The girl glanced at him, her heart racing, wanting to say something, but too afraid. Finally, she whispered, "When you look at me, what do you see?" The human turned his head, studying her carefully. "I see someone still alive," he said softly. "I see someone stronger than she knows." Her breath caught, her hands gripping the blanket tighter. "But I am broken," she said, her voice cracking. "My body is weak. I cannot work. I cannot give you anything." His answer came quickly, firm and steady. "You don't need to give me anything. Your life is enough." Her tears spilled again, her heart aching in a way that felt almost sweet. She had begged for scraps her whole life, begged to simply survive. But this man, this human, was giving her something more. He was giving her dignity. She lowered her head, whispering, "I don't know how to believe you." The human leaned closer, his tone gentle. "Then don't believe me yet. Just let me stay." The girl's chest tightened, her body trembling with fear and longing. She wanted to trust, but trust was dangerous. Trust meant pain when it was broken. Yet as he sat beside her, steady and calm, she felt her walls weakening. The warmth of the blanket around her shoulders was not just fabric, it was proof she was no longer invisible. As the evening came, the human offered his hand. "Come," he said. She froze, staring at his hand as if it were fire. "Where?" she asked, her voice shaky. "To a place where you can rest," he said, simply. "You should not sleep in the dirt." Her heart pounded, fear and hope clashing inside her chest. She whispered, "But I will only be a burden." His answer was steady. "Then let me carry the burden." Her lips trembled, and after a long pause, she placed her hand into his. His grip was warm, strong, yet gentle, lifting her as if she weighed nothing. The crowd stared, some laughing, some muttering curses, but she barely heard them. Her legs shook as she walked beside him, but for the first time, she did not fall. For the first time, she felt someone matching his steps with hers, not leaving her behind. He led her through narrow streets until they reached a small shelter built of wood and stone. Inside was simple, but safe. A fire burned low in the corner, casting a soft glow. The girl stepped inside slowly, her eyes wide, her heart racing. She had never been welcomed anywhere, yet here she was, standing in a place that felt like home. The human gave her a seat near the fire, placing the blanket tighter around her shoulders. Her body shook, not from cold, but from the flood of emotions inside her. She whispered, "Why me? Why not someone strong, someone whole?" The human looked into the flames, his voice quiet but certain. "Because strength is not in perfect bodies, it is in hearts that keep beating. Even when the world tries to stop them." Her tears fell. Silently, dropping onto the blanket, she pressed a hand to her chest, whispering, "I don't know how to live like this." With kindness, with care, the human turned to her. His voice soft, then learned slowly, "With me, Her chest ached. With both fear and longing, she did not know if she could trust him, but she wanted to, more than anything. That night, she lay on a bed of cloth near the fire, the blanket wrapped tight. The warmth of the flames touched her skin, but it was not the fire that kept her awake. It was the memory of his words. His hand holding hers, his eyes that did not look away. She had spent years believing she was nothing, believing her broken body made her worthless. But tonight, for the first time, she felt something different. She felt human warmth, not just in her body, but in her heart. And as she closed her eyes, she whispered into the silence, "Please don't let this be a dream." The days passed quietly. Each morning, the human brought food. Each evening, the fire in the shelter burned softly. The girl grew used to his presence, though her heart still trembled whenever he looked at her. She told herself not to trust, not to hope too much. Yet hope grew anyway, like a seed breaking through stone. Her body was still weak, but her spirit began to feel lighter, as if the weight she carried all her life was no longer hers. Alone, one night the air outside grew tense. The wind sharp with dust and ash. The human was late returning, and the girl sat near the fire, hugging the blanket. Every sound outside made her jump. Every shadow made her heart race. When the door finally opened, she smiled in relief until she saw the look in his eyes. His face was calm, but his body was tense, as if danger had followed him home. "They know," he said simply, placing supplies on the ground. The girl froze, her voice shaking. "Who knows?" "The scavengers," he answered, his tone quiet but firm. "They heard about you, and they want you." Her stomach dropped, fear filling every corner of her body. She had heard stories of scavengers' bands of ruthless creatures who took whatever they wanted. They would not care if she was broken. They would only see something to claim, something to use. Her body shook violently, her breath coming too fast. "I told you," she whispered. "I'm a burden. Now they will hurt you because of me." The human crouched beside her, his hand steady on her shoulder. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "You are not a burden. You are mine to protect. And I will not let them take you." Her tears burned her eyes, because she wanted to believe him, but fear screamed louder. That night, they did not sleep. The human prepared quietly, sharpening a blade, setting traps near the door, his movements calm and sure. The girl sat by the fire, clutching the blanket to her chest, whispering prayers to no one. Every crack of the wind sounded like footsteps. Every howl outside made her flinch. She wished she could be strong, wished she could fight, but all she could do was wait. The attack came just before dawn. The door slammed open, and shadows poured. Inside, 3 scavengers with cruel eyes and sharp weapons. The girl screamed, falling back against the wall, her body too weak to run. But the human moved like fire, his blade flashing, his stance unshaken. The first scavenger lunged, but the human blocked, twisting the weapon away and striking hard. The second rushed forward, but the trap snapped shut on his leg, sending him crashing to the ground. The third snarled, reaching for the girl. But the human stepped between them, his eyes blazing. "Not her," he growled, his voice sharp as steel. The scavenger hesitated, but only for a moment, swinging his blade with deadly force. The girl cried out, "No." But the human did not flinch. He caught the strike, pushing the attacker back with a strength that shook the ground. When it was over, 2 scavengers lay unconscious. One fled into the night, screaming. The shelter was scarred, but the girl was untouched. Her body shook with terror, her breath uneven. The human dropped his blade, turning to her, his voice calm again. "You're safe." She stared at him with wide, wet eyes, her voice trembling. "Why? Why risk your life for me? I'm nothing." He stepped closer, kneeling before her, his hand brushing the tears from her cheeks. "You are not nothing," he said firmly. "You are everything I choose to protect." Her chest ached so deeply that she thought she might break apart. No one had ever chosen her. No one had ever stood for her like this. Her lips trembled, her voice breaking as she whispered, "I don't know how to trust. I'm too afraid." The human's gaze softened, his voice quiet but steady. "Then let your fear be mine too. Share it with me. Don't carry it alone." The words struck deeper than any blade. For years, she had carried her fear alone. Her pain hidden, her shame locked tight. And now here he was, asking her to share it, asking her to trust. Her tears flowed freely, her body trembling as she reached out a weak hand. He caught it gently, holding it as if it were the most precious thing in the world. That night, after the battle, the fire burned low. The girl sat wrapped in her blanket, her hand still in his. Afraid to let go, the world outside was cruel, filled with danger and hate. But inside this shelter, she felt something she had never known. Safety, warmth, and the beginning of trust. She whispered into the quiet, her voice barely audible, "Please, don't leave me." And his answer came without hesitation, steady as always, never. The night after the attack was long and heavy. The fire in the shelter flickered weakly, but the girl could not sleep. Her body trembled from the memory of blades, from the sight of blood. But more than that, from the human's words. "You are everything I choose to protect," he had said. And those words echoed in her chest like a song she had never heard before. She sat close to the fire, the blanket wrapped around her thin frame. Her eyes followed him as he repaired the broken door, his hands steady even after the fight. He worked in silence, yet his presence filled the room with strength. At last, she whispered, "Why do you keep doing this for me?" The human paused, his gaze lifting to meet hers. "Because I see you, not what they call you, not what they throw at you, but you." Her heart ached, her breath shaky. Because no one had ever said such things. She wanted to believe, but doubt still clawed at her chest. "What if I can never give you anything back?" she asked, her voice breaking. The human stepped closer, kneeling before her, his eyes calm and steady. "Then give me nothing," he said softly. "Just live. That is enough." Her tears spilled, hot and endless, and she clutched the blanket. "Tighter," she whispered. "I don't know how to live. I only know how to survive." The human reached out, his hand brushing her cheek, steady and warm. "Then let me show you," he said gently. One day at a time, her body trembled, her chest filled with fear and longing. A key, and for the first time, she nodded. The days that followed were not easy. The crowd still whispered, the merchants still mocked. But she did not sit alone in the corner anymore. The human walked with her, and though her steps were slow, his matched hers perfectly, never rushing, never leaving her behind. Every cruel word thrown at her lost its power when she looked at his face, because he never looked away in his eyes. She found courage she never knew she had, but whispers turned into anger. And anger turned into plans. One evening, as they walked through the narrow streets, a group blocked their path. Aliens who had once only laughed now sneered with open hate. "She does not belong with you." One snarled, "She is broken. She is ours to discard." The girl froze, her body shaking, fear pouring through her veins. But the human stepped in front of her, his voice sharp as steel. "She belongs to no one but herself," he said, "and she walks with me by choice." The crowd roared in outrage, shouting curses, but the girl's heart beat wildly, "Belongs to no one but herself." The word struck her deeper than any blow. For all her life she had been told she was property, trash, a burden. But now she was free in his eyes. She clutched his sleeve, whispering, "They'll never stop. They'll always hate me." The human turned his head slightly, his voice calm and steady. Then let them hate. It changes nothing. You are still mine to stand beside. That night, back at the shelter, she sat quietly, staring into the fire. Her hands trembled as she whispered, "I am afraid, always afraid. I cannot stop it." The human sat beside her, his voice soft. "Fear does not make you weak. It makes you real. Trust does not mean you feel no fear. It means you choose, despite it." Her chest tightened, her tears slipping again because she wanted so badly to believe. "Then what am I to you?" she whispered, her voice barely a breath. The human looked at her, his eyes burning with truth. "You are not trash, not broken, not worthless," he said firmly. "You are the one I choose, the one I see, the one I will never leave her." Breath broke, her tears falling faster. Because no alien had ever given her such words. What no alien could give. This human gave free dignity, protection, warmth, and something even deeper. Something she had never dreamed she could touch. Love. She reached out with trembling hands, touching his arm, her voice shaking. "Then let me say it," she whispered. "I want to live with you. Even if I'm afraid, even if I'm broken." The human's face softened, a rare smile breaking through, his hand covering hers. "Then live with me," he said gently. "And know you are never broken in my eyes." The girl cried into his chest, her sobs soft but full of release. Years of pain poured out, years of shame burned away, until only warmth remained. The fire glowed brighter. The night outside, dark and cruel, but inside the shelter, something unbreakable was born. She no longer felt like a shadow waiting to die. She felt alive. She felt seen. She felt chosen. When dawn came, she walked out of the shelter at his side. The market turned to watch. The whispers rose again. But she did not bow her head. Her body was still weak. Her scars still marked her skin. But for the first time, she walked tall. Because she was no longer the broken one, no longer the burden. She was his, and more importantly, she was hers. And in the eyes of a human, she had found what no alien could ever give: hope, belonging, and love.